The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
This is Orioles preview. Orioles continuing their series with the Mets tonight at Camden Yards. Coverage here at 6:30 for the 7 o'clock first pitch. They will close out the series tomorrow with a 1 o'clock game at Camden Yards, and then Miami will come in for the weekend, and then they go back on the road to face Tampa. O's right now 10 games under 500. They are in last place in the American League East, 13 games out of first place, but they're only 7.5 games out of the wild card spot. So there is some hope. Last night, very tough game. They go up 6-2 in a game that featured an immaculate inning from Brandon Young, and the Mets come back and they win it 7-6 on a single from an old friend from this area, Juan Soto, who did not make the All-Star team, but delivered in the clutch last night for the Mets. And after blowing that 6-2 lead, Tony Mansolino, the manager, said this.
It stings, there's no doubt. I mean, it feels the same way as the one we lost in Tampa. You know, the 8-run thing is the same feeling. It doesn't feel good. I think you constantly go back to your preparation, your process. Did we do everything right? Did we get the guys in the right spots? I feel like we did. It just wasn't our night.
So, not their night, but that fifth inning was a night for Brandon Young. He got the 3 strikeouts on 9 pitches. Jesse Winker and Jeff McNeil struck out swinging. Luis Torres looked at the 3rd strike, the first immaculate inning by an Orioles starter since Kevin Guzman. Guzman did it against Cleveland in 2018. This is Young on what he did.
Significant? Yeah, pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. Overall felt good. Felt I had command of not just 1 or 2 pitches, but a couple, and kept them on their toes. I worked the fastball pretty good early on. I feel like I'm getting better, learning a few things. Confidence builder tonight. Anytime I can get out there and get past 5 innings, put my team a chance to win, I think that's a good thing. That's definitely a positive. I think keep building on it. Keep trying to. There's always things to get better at, work at. So excited to keep working at it, learning.
So there is some ill feelings, I guess, that Jackson Holliday did not make the All-Star team. Had a year which he deserves consideration, 2nd year in the major leagues. But the Orioles will have an All-Star representative, as every team does. But they have a starter. Ryan O'Hearn has had a hell of a year for them. And when they got the news last week in Texas, this was his response.
And, I've been kind of not trying not to get my hopes up for the last month or so as all this has been going on, but just because of last year, kind of similar thing. But to finally get the news today and get to be a starter, I mean, I'm over the moon. Insane.
How'd you find out?
Manso announced it to the whole team, and had a nice little story about me, and then cool to get recognized like that in front of your teammates, and kind of feel the love and give my own little version of a speech, and so I'm blown away.
Have you called your parents yet?
I just called my mom. I'm gonna see my dad tonight, so I'll tell him in person. And like I said, I'm over the moon. I can't wait to tell my dad. My mom's freaking out. It's been such a journey in my career, and
shouldn't have cut that off. That was my fault. Second thing, this was Tony Mansolino, manager of the Orioles, and this is how he described it and delivered the news to the team in Texas when it was announced that, in fact, O'Hearn will be an All-Star and will be a starter.
It means a lot for everybody. I think a good indication for me is, we were able to announce it to the room a little bit earlier, and to see kind of the joy and the happiness on the whole room's face, the staff, the players, all different types of players, the veterans, the young guys, the American guys, the Latin guys. People really support him and are really happy for him. So I think that probably tells the story of Ryan O'Hearn as much as the story itself.
What did it mean for you to be the one to like that?
It's part of the job that I'm doing. But to me, it's just about Ryan. I mean, it was nice to be able to do it the way that I wanted to do it, to tell the story that needed to be told. So that part was nice, but, just really happy for Ryan.
You've been in baseball a long time. There are superstars, first-round draft picks, and that clubhouse. But to have a guy that had to grind so long to get to this point, does that mean that you're special?
Well, I think for everybody. I mean, it's an incredible story. Like I told the story to all the guys earlier. Went back and when he got to the big leagues and kind of where it went. You guys can look it up and see it. But as you kind of chronologically go through year to year and see kind of what his track has been, it's really incredible. Now, last year he almost got there. He was close last year, so I think a little bit of the sting of not getting there last year probably bleeds a little bit into the joy for him getting it this year.
So that's Tony Mansolino and Ryan O'Hearn. The reaction to O'Hearn being an all-star starter next week in Atlanta. He will be the Orioles' lone representative in that game. We've also got the trade deadline coming up as well as the draft. The Orioles will be picking 19th in the draft on Sunday, but the trade deadline comes up at the end of the month. And Jim Duquette was a guest the other day on the Ryan Ripken podcast, and it's interesting when you talk stories about trades that did happen, trades that didn't happen. And this one goes back almost 20 years. You remember a player for the Orioles, an excellent player, he was an all-star, Miguel Tejada. He was pretty much in his prime, in his early 30s. And the team was going through a period of time where they were not necessarily rebuilding, but they were, looking to add some young prospects, and he had the most trade value. And he had that year left on his contract in the following year, so he had some control over him. And the job was to shop around Miguel Tejada. And Jim Duquette, in the front office at the time, managed to come up with a really good deal that should have gone through, but as he described to Ripken, didn't happen.
There was 3 teams that were really interested. It was the Mets, it was the Astros, and it was the Angels. And the team that offered the best package was the Angels. They really liked him. Their owner wanted him badly. They had a number of coaches that loved him. We had a really good scout that had scouted the Angels very well. And we had it down to, if you remember, Irving Santana or Bartolo Colon. We had our choice of one of those 2 guys. Eric Ibar was a really good shortstop, leadoff type of hitter, top of the lineup hitter. He was young. They were both controllable guys for like 6 years, and we could have gotten a prospect back as well for Miggy. That was the best package, and we had other packages too that would have been really good, organization changing. And I went over. I was organizing everything. I had a whiteboard. We walked over to the law offices there. And sat down with Peter Angelos, who was the one obviously we were reporting to, and we explained each team. We went through 5 teams, all of the list of names. We went through it took us about 30 minutes, a 30-minute presentation, and at the end, Peter sat there, and this is what happens. Ownership has their reasons. He just looked at us, kind of put his hand up on his chin, and he said, "No, I don't want to do it." And that was it. It was silence. And I was looking for a reason, and so was Flanny. We were like, okay, there's got to be nothing. He just didn't want to do it. Later, he told me, he was concerned about who was going to replace him offensively. He was like, listen, we weren't concerned about that. We were concerned about, the following couple of years. And that would have changed. We would have had a premium shortstop who ended up being an all-star and a top of the rotation starter to help in that rebuild. But that's what happens with owners sometimes is they don't want to make those, you really need to get those answers ahead of time, which I thought we did, but, we needed constant communication and conversation in that part. And that's one of those you go back and go, wow, there was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, Jim Duquette does all that work, half-hour presentation, and the owner goes, meh. We're just going to keep the guy. I guess it happens. Coming up on Orioles Preview, we'll talk to Trevor Rogers, who made history over the weekend in Texas and is having a great year since being called up. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
Orioles Review with Andy Pollin on ESPN 630 is presented by Sprinkler Fitters, Local Union 669, saving lives and protecting property for over 100 years.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We're talking to Trevor Rogers, Orioles starter. Let me get to this, and I'm going to spend some time on what happened last week in Texas. But you got called up this year. You started the year in the minors, but since coming up, you have been fabulous. 5 starts. You got an ERA of 1.57, 2-0. You're back in the territory you were with Miami back in 2021. What has been the difference for you?
I think it's been a couple of things. I worked really well or really hard with driveline this offseason. Really attacking some deficiencies that I've had over the past couple of years, and just ways to attack those and get better. And then probably the mental side of the game, I've worked especially hard on. I don't think I've ever been this locked in with my process. And whenever I'm taking the mound, I'm just solely locked in on trying to do my job, and I'm really not focused on anything else.
Did I not read that you work with a sports psychologist on this?
Yeah. Zach Sorensen played the game for a long time. I think he's the head guy for the Reds. And we reached out to him because I was really struggling just with confidence, and I really wasn't excited, to be honest with you, going into spring training, and I usually am.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I needed to reach out to someone, because the fact that I wasn't even excited to go back and get back into the swing of things, I knew I needed to change my outlook.
I mean, were we talking mental health? Is it that kind of thing? Was it in that range, or was it just something that you hadn't performed as well as you wanted to last year?
Yeah, it was just all the stuff that happened last year. I wasn't performing well, and I got sent down, and then you start listening to outside noise and outside chatter, something that you can't control, and really just affected me. And I think deep down, I knew the type of pitcher I could be, and I wasn't doing it for a couple of years. And I think that just really affected my confidence. And that's something that Zach and I worked on this entire spring training, and really acquiring and building those mental skills to just know that, it starts with positive self-talk. That's how you gain confidence, how you keep confidence. And whenever those tough starts do come, that I have a routine and a mental process to, move on from that quicker.
Interesting. What kind of thing? Do you say things to yourself? I mean, how do you get through moments like that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I took away from it was I stopped listening to myself and started talking to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I found that if I listened to myself, it was 95% negative all the time. I was just beating myself up constantly. So I really just started to work on that. I started to, audibly talk to myself on the mound, positive self-talk, probably 100% of the time. And that really just changed my outlook when I was pitching. It simplified what my mission was on the mound. And I found that it worked the best when I had a bad start. In Tampa, I didn't get out of the third inning, but my self-talk was still positive. And in years past, I would call myself every name in the book. I would beat myself up. But, I was still upset with the results, but I was able to look at it constructively and say, hey, what did you do wrong? What did you do good? And what could you do better? And it was at that moment, I'm like, okay, this stuff is working because I'm not beating myself up over it.
That's fascinating. That's really, you're too young to remember this, but almost 50 years ago, the Tigers had a pitcher named Mark Fidrich, and he used to talk to the ball. I mean, he was a little wacky, but, right, anything that works, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't mess with the dirt with his hands like he did.
Oh, good. You know your history. Good for you. Oh,
yeah. He was fun to watch.
Speaking of history, we're talking to Trevor Rogers, Orioles pitchers having a terrific year for them. You made some history over last week in Texas, where you became only the third pitcher to bat since we put in the universal DH in 2022. Why don't you explain the situation and why you were called on to bat against Texas?
Yeah, so both of our catchers were in the lineup. Trump was obviously behind the dish, and then Gary was our DH. So we had no other catchers on the bench. So when Trump got hurt, Sanchez, our other catcher, moved into the catcher role. So that left our 9-hole open. So that means I moved into the 9-hole, and they came up to me and said, "You might have to hit." I'm like, "Okay, I've done it before. I know for 95% certainty what the outcome is going to be." So Yeah, it was definitely not on my bingo card when I went to the stadium that day that I was going to be batting.
Yeah, and you batted twice, struck out twice, swung only once. Were you told, hey, don't swing, maybe you could hurt yourself, or how was the approach there?
Yeah, the manager said that, yeah, don't swing. I said, okay. And he jokingly said, for every swing you take, I'm going to find Gunner $10,000. I'm like, all right, I'll swing then. So that's what I was telling myself. So when he threw me a first pitch fastball, I was like, man, I don't know if I want to swing or not. And I just told myself, I'm like, why not? I'm going to give it a rip one time. And of course, he throws me a slider, and I was probably about 3 feet out in front of it. But that's when I looked back and kind of did that hand gesture of, no more. I just wanted one.
You remember Bartolo Colon? I remember when he was pitching for the Mets. He was pitching against the Nats with a bad back, and they didn't have the DH then. And he went to the plate. He never took his bat off his shoulders. Like, I'm not even going to think about swinging there. But you at least went up there with an approach. I actually looked up your stats from the year that you did both pitch and hit with the Marlins before the DH came in. 43 at-bats, 3 hits, and a walk. And I wonder how many times when you faced the pitcher did you walk the pitcher, and was that considered to be like a cardinal sin?
Oh, yeah. There's 2 things you don't want to do. You don't want to give up a hit to a pitcher, and you don't want to walk them. Mm-hmm. I don't know which one is worse. In my opinion, I would assume a walk is worse. That was in the back of all of our minds, like, for the love of God, just don't walk the guy.
Yeah. I mean, but when you were walked, did you give him who was it against? Do you remember?
To be honest, I really don't remember. I didn't even think I got a walk, but that's pretty cool to go on the back of a baseball card.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll always have that. I don't know how many more opportunities you'll have to hit, but you had two opportunities last week to do that. And then the 3 hits, you remember the 3 hits at all?
One was off one of my teammates, Eflin.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the hardest ball I hit.
Yeah.
My first one was against Brandon Kinsler. It was a little Butcher Boy single. And then the last one was against Josh Rogers in D.C., a little single up the middle.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a pretty good resume to have. And do you know, you obviously know your history on Mark Fidrich. Do you know the name Dave McNally?
I do not know that name.
Dave McNally was a pitcher for the Orioles when they had those great teams back in the late 60s and early 70s. I believe he is the only pitcher to hit a grand slam in the World Series, which I would think would never happen again, although, with the situation you found yourself in, you never know. Of course, I guess nowadays, given the extenuating circumstances, you'd be told exactly what you were told the other night. Don't swing, right?
Yeah, exactly. They said don't swing, but if there's runners on first and second, try to drop a butt down.
Yeah.
But if you're not comfortable with that, don't even think about it.
Often the best pitcher in high school is also the best hitter. When you played in high school, did they have the DH or did you hit?
No, I hit. The funny thing was in New Mexico at the time, we used wood bat.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I would usually hit 4, 5, or 6 hole. I think I hit 350 my senior year.
Right. Okay. Well, that's pretty solid. So they wanted your bat in the lineup. I guess when you didn't pitch, what did you play? Shortstop or what'd you do there?
First base.
First base. Okay. Well, that's quite a resume. The year that you're having right now. I mean, do you feel as confident as you ever have, even going back to when you were pitching in Miami in 2021?
Yeah, I've had this conversation with a couple people that even in 2021, it wasn't that I wasn't confident. It was just I was doing everything in my power to stay in the big leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Being a rookie, being a young guy, you do whatever it takes. So I wasn't even focused on, the confidence aspect of it. So I've told quite a few people that I'm more confident now than I even was in 2021. Just because of all the skills that I've learned and acquired. And obviously when you go out and do your job well consistently, that builds confidence. And it just shows me that I can still compete at the highest level and have success.
Excellent. Well, continued success to you. It's a heck of a story, and you can join a great tradition of Oriole pitching if this continues, and I hope it does.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, take care of yourself. That's Trevor Rogers, who again did something that has been done only 3 times since they put in the DH. I actually should have asked him if he practices. Remember Max Scherzer, 2019, on the way to the World Series? He's practicing bunting. The ball comes off the bat, breaks his nose, and he comes back and he pitches with a broken nose a day later. Just unbelievable. The other pitchers who have hit 2022. River San Martin, April 19th of 2022, and Luis Castillo did it last year on June 30th of 2024. So, heck of a story. Trevor Rogers, and maybe a great comeback story as maybe he can help pitch the Orioles back into contention in the second half of the season. They're 7.5 out of the wild card. Series continues tonight against the Mets, and coverage here will get underway at 6:30 for the 7 o'clock game. That's going to wrap it for me. Bram is coming up next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.